All right, boils and ghouls, welcome back to the Horror After Dark podcast in the sack with JT. And we are continuing a series that I did a video on, a year plus ago. A series I don't care for that much, but they are fun. Maybe not the next one, the last one, Urban Legends Bloody Mary, which came out 5 years after this film, the sequel to the original Urban Legends Final Cut. This is directed by John Ottoman, who was primarily a composer, who did some really good movie scores. The Usual Suspects, Cable Guy, which is a favorite dark comedy of mine, Halloween H2O, which I don't care much for, Lake Placid. This was actually his film directorial debut. We have Jennifer Morrison in this, who I don't think I've seen her in much else after this. I know she's done other things, but not really what I watch. She is such a cute girl. And we have Matthew Davis, who plays Alaric on The Vampire Diaries. And this movie doesn't really have many ties to the original from what I can remember. It's been a while since I've seen this, except for references to the massacre from the first movie at Pendleton State University. This is set at Alpine University, where we follow our protagonist, Amy Mayfield, as she is a film major. And I like that about this movie, that there's a lot of film talk thrown in. So that makes it pretty much as enjoyable as the first one for me, which again, I'm not crazy about. If you want my thoughts on Urban Legend 98, check out my video for that. I'll link it at the end of this. But the other thing that really makes me rewatch this movie ever is Loretta Devine, which I talked a lot about in the Urban Legend video. I absolutely love Loretta Devine. She is such a great actress. She is hysterical, and she really is one of the few things that makes me rewatch this movie now and then. She has some great dialogue in this. There's a lot of references to blaxploitation movies starring Pam Grier from the 70s, like Coffee and Foxy Brown, which Devine's character, Reese, the security guard, is a huge fan of, and she transferred from Pendleton State University after some scandal. We'll get into it. And she ended up at Alpine University, so now she is the only returning character from the original. And I love every second that she's on screen. So without further ado, let's dive into Urban Legends Final Cut from 2000. And yes, there is one other returning character, but we'll save that for the end. Also, shouldn't have to say it, but there's a bunch of stupid shit in this movie, just like the first one. More so, probably. So be careful and get ready. So we have this opening scene on an airplane, and there's a bunch of young people on it. They're partying, getting drunk, and then this blonde chick ends up going into the bathroom with this guy. He's licking and chomping on her pussy. There's a House of a Thousand Corpses reference for you guys and for Rob Zombie for his birthday, which was today or yesterday, I believe. Happy birthday, Rob Zombie. Last I checked, he hasn't listened to the show in a while, but if you hear it, happy birthday, buddy. And then while they're having hanky-panky in the bathroom of this airplane, this guy murders everybody. He's going around stabbing people, and then you hear cut, and it's a film being worked on at this university. But for some reason, we see the whole professionally edited version before he calls cut, and it's revealed they're filming it now. I don't know. It's a cool intro, and then we meet Amy, our main character, and she's working on this film and has to do a thesis film of her own. And she comes up with the great idea to do it about people who are murdered in the style of various urban legends. Then we have a speech from Professor Solomon, who's Amy's professor and was a director or something, and now he teaches. And he's talking about, this is a very prestigious film school in this movie. And he's talking about the Hitchcock Award, which they give out every year, which is a very prestigious award, and it's launched the careers of a few alumni. So Amy absolutely wants this award. And then here she is. Here's my girl Reese. She shows up and picks Amy up in the cold. She's taking a walk. It's snowing out, and they start talking. I love that she tells her to get in the car, she'll give her a ride. And as soon as Amy gets in Reese's car, she says, just like that, no, let me see your ID, let me know who you are, nothing. She is so funny. And it's cute, their dynamic, because this is where I think we saw this in the first movie, right? She's like pulling her gun at the TV. She was watching either Coffee or Foxy Brown. One of those. So it's been established she's a fan. But it really plays into this movie. And she says that she has her gun trimmed with gold, just like from Coffee. And then they bring up Foxy Brown. Nice film talk. And then she says that she is thinking of her thesis film and can't come up with a story. So Reese says, I got a story, and starts telling her about what happened at Pendleton State. And it was hush money they gave out to everyone to not mention the details of what happened. And she basically said, fuck you. And she left and got a job here. That's one thing I don't care about in this movie. She goes to pitch her urban legend movie idea to her professor, Professor Solomon. And this movie just mentions and pays homage to Hitchcock so much, almost to M. Night Shyamalan levels. And some of you know how I feel about that with him. I don't like movies that talk about a specific director and reference him so many times. And this movie does mention Hitchcock a lot. I mean, he just did the whole name of the awards, the Hitchcock Award. It's a little much at times. But he loves her movie idea. And then we go to the next scene at a club or a bar, and we see Travis, who is played by, I forget the guy's name, Alaric from the Vampire Diaries. And he's a very talented filmmaker, but he lost the Hitchcock Award the year prior or something like that. And he's talking with this girl, and she wakes up in a bathtub with a scar. And then we see her kidney that was taken out. And she calls 911, and they say, I got another call, and mention some other urban legend, like, oh yeah, your kidney's missing, sure. Hangs up on her. And then she tries to escape. This is a decent kill. Through the window, and the window breaks in the scuffle, so then he brings down the window and it decapitates her, and her head falls outside into the snow where there's a dog, and then he throws the kidney out the window and the dog starts eating it. That's a good first kill. The effects don't look anything great, but it's better than most of the kills that we get in the first movie, and a lot of them are just cutaway kills in that. Oh, and there's a cool little reference, an homage to Black Christmas with that first kill. Before she wakes up in the bathtub, she's walking around some room, and the killer's in a closet, and plastic wraps her to knock her out. And then she wakes up in the bathtub, just like Black Christmas. Forgot all about that, but that's a cool homage. Then there's some funny dialogue. Amy starts, explaining to her crew what she wants for this movie. And she says one of the urban legends where this woman would put her hand down and her dog would lick it to let her know everything's all right. Then the next morning she wakes up, goes in the bathroom, sees the dog hanging dead and gutted. And then it says humans can lick too on the mirror or something. That's cool. Then funny little lines where the two effects people, one of them says, no, we have to go practical. And the other one says, oh, I can call my father. We can go digital. He says, no way, man. Latex is awesome. And then he says, your God, George Lucas, disagrees. And he says, fuck George Lucas. And then the other effects guy looks at him and says, man, you're going to hell. That's funny. And then we find out that the DP that's supposed to work on her movie is pissed at her because he was going to do a horror film. And he's basically accusing her, but not fully, of stealing his idea. I mean, it's a totally different script and everything. Only that she's doing a horror film, right? That's how I take that. But this is where the red herrings start. And it's possibly this guy, because he says, no one's taking the Hitchcock Award away from me, especially you, little girl, in the most I'm not the murderer way that you could possibly say, with the music swelling up and stuff. So then she goes and talks to Travis, and he got a C- on his movie. So goodbye to his chances for the Hitchcock Award this time. There's kind of like a little romance that buds here, but then he gets killed a little later, and then we meet his twin brother, his identical twin brother. And then there's like that budding romance that started with the first brother kind of continues with the twin. It's very strange. And I don't know if that whole twin thing was supposed to be a red herring, but I don't know anybody who saw this movie and thought that the guy faked his death. And is that what that's supposed to imply? Like as a red herring, that it's still Travis and he faked his death and he's going around killing people? Because if that was the intent, it did not work at all. Then we get another kill with the blonde who was acting in the airplane scene at the very beginning of the movie. Cool how they do this, that she's being stalked and then she ends up getting, you don't see it, it's a cutaway kill, but she gets cut with a straight razor. And then the rest of the film crew and Amy are watching this footage thinking that it's something that the crew worked on without her, but it's the actual film killing of this girl. So everyone's saying like, oh, you did a great job and stuff, but it's not her movie. And this is when she starts first suspecting that there is a serial killer going around trying to recreate these urban legends. Although I do gotta say, like I said earlier, with all the Hitchcock stuff in here, I'm sure it was on purpose. The way that whole scene plays out when they're watching the girl's murder on tape feels just like the Psycho shower scene. And I know the director also composed the score for this and edited the movie, so he must have been a big Hitchcock fan. But how we hear the sound effects of her getting stabbed multiple times, but you don't see it, and there's a lot of edits, and it goes back and forth from the footage to Amy's reaction and the other crew's reaction. It's edited in a very Psycho shower scene fashion, but it's still very good. Then it ends with just you see her body laying on the ground, just like Psycho. And the effects people and the crew, they're all saying, yeah, it looked great, but we didn't do this. So wouldn't that set alarms off for everybody involved? But it only seems like Amy's the only one bothered by it. To be fair, they didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, because then the person barges in and lets them all know that Travis killed himself, the guy who was supposed to get the award, but obviously he was murdered. Then Amy sees somebody, but she can't make out their face, at the little memorial they have at the university for Travis. And we later find out that it's the identical twin brother of him, Trevor. Alright, that's right. So Amy's father is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, but I'm pretty sure he worked at the school or he cast a vote or something that plays into the reveal at the end that went against the killer and his whole motive. Then we get another kill that's whatever. This guy goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and Amy's recording the whole crew screaming, all of them together at the top of their lungs. For what? I don't know. I mean, it's a group scream, and it goes on for like 30 seconds just to cover the screams of the guy being killed right outside. And he gets his head smashed a bunch with a flashlight. The killer's look, it's the same as in the first movie with the fencing mask, but it doesn't have the coat with like the gray fur around the hood with the hood up. Not wearing that. Besides that, same as the first one. And I don't know, I'm indifferent on the look of the killer in the series. The fencing mask is cool. It's not great, it's not bad. Amy thinks that she hears the tail end of the guy who went outside screaming. She goes to my girl Reese, and hysterical how she's watching Foxy Brown. She's dancing to the song. So fun. And then Amy bursts in and jump scares the shit out of her. She turns around, and great dialogue when she says, I was recording screaming and I thought I heard screaming. And then she repeats that back to her. It says, so let me get this straight. You were recording screaming, and then you heard screaming. Great stuff. Then she asks Reese if she could borrow the security footage to check on the screen that she heard earlier and see if she sees anything. And after everything that this woman, Reese, went through at Pendleton State and dealing with the psychotic killer, she just hands the security footage over to her. And Amy ends up seeing the guy get killed on camera. So now she's freaking out. And she better hurry to save the day. So then Amy's alone in one of the buildings, and we get a pretty drawn-out chase. It's suspenseful at times, but it's nothing great. It's nothing bad either. It's just, it feels very typical 2000 slasher chase sequence. Nothing that stands out. Everything we've seen a million times before. Typical 2000s chase sequence score. Typical 2000s chase sequence directing, editing, all of that. But then she runs down into the tunnels, and she again jump scares the shit out of Reese, who's down there doing her rounds. And she says, "Girl, this is getting old." I'm telling you, she saves this movie for me. Like I said with the first urban legend in that video, they could have called this one Loretta Devine Solves More Mysteries, or Loretta Devine Solves Mysteries Part 2, and I would have been there faster than if it was Urban Legends Final Cut. So then Amy rendezvous with Trevor, the identical twin of Travis, and then she goes off to turn this mining attraction at like a carnival into an urban legend for a scene in her movie. And they put fake bodies up all over the place, and then a few people get killed here. It's a pretty cool sequence. And the black effects artist gets hit on the head with, looks like a hammer or something like that. And then the killer takes a light and lights the wire that the guy's holding, and it electrocutes him. That's pretty cool. The other effects artist, he just gets shoved into an electrical box and he gets shocked to shit. That one's much less good of a kill. And then we have another chase sequence with the killer trying to kill Amy until Reese arrives and says, "Hey, nice set. Where's your crew?" And then they smash cut to the bodies being taken out of the place. But I don't know if this was intentional too, trying to make Reese seem like the possible killer. That maybe she snapped from everything she experienced in the first movie and she became a killer for this one, because none of that ever worked for me. So Amy meets back up with Trevor and they fall asleep together. She has a dream that they're fucking, and then he brings a knife out behind her back and then stabs her in the back and she wakes up. I hate dream sequences for the most part. Then Amy and the brunette friend of hers, they're like the only ones left. She gets a note, the brunette, from Amy, but it turns out the killer wrote it to get them there, and then they get chased upstairs, and the brunette gets yanked out of the closet. I mean, Amy didn't really do anything to help her. She gets yanked out the closet, but then he locks her in the closet, and she turns around, and this looks really cool. You see the dead body of, it looks like the guy who was beaten with the flashlight, and then the girl from earlier with the razor blade kill. You see her throat slit open, and there's a rat coming out of the wound, and there's rats crawling all over her, and Reese sees that one of the alarms for that building's triggered, and she says, "Oh, goddamn rats." All that's really good. And then we have the whole ending and the reveal here, where the brother of Travis, the twin, what's his name? Trevor, right? And Amy are looking at the computers in the library, and they deduce what the motive is for this killer. All the victims were people that worked on Travis's film, and they find out that the movie is a shit movie that was directed by the killer, who's the professor. And the movie was spliced onto the credits of Travis's film. So the whole motive here is the professor feels like he was gypped because Amy's father cast a deciding vote for the Hitchcock Award when he was a student there. And he's held a grudge ever since, and that was his ticket to Hollywood and all that. So she came to the school, and he says, "Let's take revenge on the daughter of the prick who stopped my career from happening." And he's going to take Travis's film and pass it off as his own and get his whole career in Hollywood as a director that he always wanted. And that's after Amy and Trevor kidnap I think it's the guy who accused her of stealing the script from him or the idea, and they threaten him with a prop gun. He falls for it. And then that's when Professor Solomon reveals himself that he's the killer. And they're in this creepy soundstage with a graveyard. And it's great when Reese shows up. And she's, all right, get the crazy white girl, put down the gun, kick her far away from you. And says, all you out of the creepy-ass graveyard. I'm telling you, she has the best lines in this movie by far. Then there's some stupidity when the guy who they kidnapped, thinking he's the killer, he gets shot and falls into one of the graves. And then they spill a barrel of prop guns on the ground, and Reese's gun gets lost in the mix. And there's 3 of them all looking for the real gun amongst all the prop guns. I mean, it's kind of stupid, except for the fact that we know Reese's gun has gold trim on it, just like Pam Grier's in Coffee. So it's a cute little callback, but it is kind of stupid that these 3 people are just picking gun up after gun and they're trying to shoot each other with it. It's all stupid, actually. But the stuff with Reese and her gun and the homages to Coffee, that saves it. So the professor was going to make it look like Amy snapped and killed all these people. And after struggling with the prop guns, he ends up getting shot by Amy. And then we get this psych out, which isn't really a psych out because the guy who's playing this sniper in this movie that they're filming, we've seen him before in the movie. So I don't know. But we see them giving out the Hitchcock Award in memory to Travis. And that his brother Trevor is there to accept it. Then there's a guy with a sniper rifle up on the rafters, and Reese sees him and like shouts out, "You psycho fucker," and shoots him twice, and he falls onto a pad, and they yell cut. So she's working on a movie. Her manager, who's one of her friends, it looks like the guy who got pissed at her, but several people look the same in this movie. He's saying they won't accept a 3-picture deal or less. Then the TV shuts off, and we're in a hospital. And it's Professor Solomon in this psych ward. And the nurse is Brenda, Rebecca Gayheart, the killer from the first movie. And she says we have a lot in common. Then the theme song to Alfred Hitchcock Presents is the credit music for this. And it ends. So Urban Legends, final cut. It's fun. It might be more enjoyable for me than the first movie. But both of them, the series is not a series I like much or throw on often. They're fun watches, and then you forget all about them for another 5 years or so. Should I do the third one, Urban Legends Bloody Mary from '05 next? Let me know in the comments if I should do that one. That way I can never return to this series again. But that was a fun rewatch because it has been a while since I've seen this. Alright everybody, hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.